Today on the DML News podcast, Donald J. Trump looking to take over the world country by country, state by state. And he is not kidding. Ron DeSantis vows to fill a Senate seat with somebody who supports the kind of things I do. And there's a thing called the Laken-Riley Act, and the Democrats don't want it. We've got these stories and more, so get ready because it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. Across from me is my son, Denny, and on the controls is my other son, Ryan. We are here with you on this very cold and blustery day in Florida. In fact, I kind of like it because I'm taking out some of the clothes that I brought with me from New York a few years ago, and they've been alone by themselves, sitting on hangers, and I'm taking them off and shaking off the dust. But it is cold outside. In fact, so cold, I take my morning walk. I said to my wife, you want to go for a walk with me? She's like, no way. And then I knew it was really cold when my dog rejected the idea of going for a walk. I still, however, did. With that said, Donald J. Trump is also in Florida, and he is ripping through a lot of different ideas, things that I've never heard before on the campaign trail. But obviously, somebody got into his ear and said, you know, while we're making America great again, why don't we just take over the world? And I think Trump likes that, because if he can't get himself on Mount Rushmore, which I think he actually deserves, he's going to want to create a new monument. Maybe he'll create that monument in Greenland. Who knows? But anyway, we've got a series of 3 videos here for you, which we're going to get into right away. And they are featuring Donald J. Trump from Mar-a-Lago. He's being asked a series of questions about some of the things that he's talking about right now. One of the new ones, which is just so, it's hard to say it without smiling, which is so in Trump's wheelhouse, is we're going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And here's Trump telling the world to get ready for the name change. Play the video, Ryan.
And we're going to be announcing at a future date pretty soon. We're going to change, because we do most of the work there and it's ours. We're going to be changing, sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate. And Mexico has to stop allowing millions of people to pour into our country. They can stop them. And we're going to put very serious tariffs on Mexico and Canada, because Canada, they come through Canada too. And the drugs that are coming through are at record numbers. Record numbers.
What he's doing, Denny, is he's doing a little tactic called declaring victory. And back in my younger days, you may recall, I mean, you were a young boy at the time, I was partners with a gentleman named John Scully. He was the former CEO of Pepsi when Pepsi and Coca-Cola did the Pepsi, the taste tests, the cola wars, and he won that battle. And then the second thing was he went over to Apple. And he actually, Steve Jobs had hired him, and he ran Apple for 10 years, built it up pretty nice. Eventually, Steve Jobs would take it back. But the point being is that I used to sit with John Scully. He's brilliant marketer. And that's why Apple had hired him, because he was so brilliant in the cola wars. And back then it was even a chimpanzee can tell that Pepsi beats Coke. And he said something to me early on in our relationship, and I used to sit with him every morning. He was a mentor. He taught me so much different stuff about marketing, advertising, branding. He's a little bit of why I tag myself as DML versus Dennis Michael Lynch. And the one thing he said that has stuck with me through all the years is that the number one way to become number one is to declare victory. Declare victory, whether or not you are winning or losing, you declare victory. And the only other time I have ever heard anybody say that is I was watching the film. Did you watch the film The Apprentice?
Like the recent one that came
Yeah,
out.
there's a
That
recent film that came out
oh
called The
no,
Apprentice. It's
I
about
know they target Trump and
Well,
everything.
it's all about Trump. It's
Yeah.
about Trump and how he, started. In fact, the movie starts him collecting rents on behalf of his father. And I mean, of course, it doesn't put Trump in a very nice light. But one of the things in that film is that a lawyer named Roy Cohn is sort of the mentor teaching Trump how to be Trump, so to say. And he told him, you must always declare victory. Even if you are not winning, you declare victory. And what I watch right now is the lesson of declaring victory. Trump, by saying that he's going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, does a few things, Denny. Number one, first and foremost, it pisses off Mexico to no end, because it's like, hey, you're not as big as us, and we don't care. We're changing the name. No respect for you. It's the Gulf of America. And so, that throws Mexico back on its heels. There's nothing much they could do about it. And then secondly, I mean, it makes sense. And if you look at the way the Gulf of Mexico is, it's coming ashore to more American U.S. states than it is Mexico. So why shouldn't it be that? Why shouldn't it be ours? And let's name it that way. And what Trump is doing by this is he's declaring victory, and he's saying, it doesn't matter what you say. I'm taking it. It's ours. Enough of the farting around. None of this nice stuff anymore. Gulf of America. You want to use the Gulf of America? Give me a call. I'll let you use it. Just make sure that all the illegal aliens don't come across my border anymore, and just make also sure that the drugs stop. This is what he's starting to do. He's declaring victory. I think Americans, by and large, would love it if that was called the Gulf of America. It seems so meaningless on the surface, but it has such victory to it, because it's like, yes, we're not only taking back what is ours, but we're taking back things that should be ours.
Totally. I mean, it's a showmanship of sticking it to Mexico. I mean, he's clearly frustrated with the illegal immigration crisis that Mexico, by and large, is helping facilitate. So what better way to piss him off other than, bumping up the border and border patrol than to say, hey, this notorious body of water that's encompassed your name for centuries, how about we just, stamp it with Gulf of America? And it will probably be tricky because you have to get it recognized on an international level. And there might be countries like, oh, we're viewing it as Gulf of Mexico. But it's more the symbolism of him saying, we're not screwing around, territorial wise. When you kind of do the map lining, it actually, I think, covers more of America than Mexico at this point. It's a little bit of like a gesturing joke that he's mentioning it. But this press conference that he had proves it's really not a joke. He's serious. Like, this is more of a pro-national, pro-America, we're not screwing around. And I know we have the clips on it too. When he gets into his plans for Canada, Greenland, even the Panama Canal, it's very clear that it's more than just make America great again. It's make America the powerhouse.
If people do not recognize the Gulf of Mexico as being the Gulf of America, he will cut the money off to them. I am telling you right now, he's not joking around.
I know.
He is declaring victory. Maps will be changed. And if Google Maps does not change it to Gulf of America because they're playing their BS politics that they do, their politically correct stuff, he will crack down on Google. Look what he just did with Facebook. Look at the about face. I mean, that was the whole leading headline everywhere yesterday about how Facebook is now going to have no more fact checking. I mean, that is so minuscule in terms of a story and a news headline, and yet it got prominence because it's like, wow, look at the power Trump has. Facebook has been playing this game, this fact-checking BS game for the longest time, and like that, Trump gets it changed. And I'm telling you right now, we have a highway in Florida. If you're looking at Florida from the bird's eye view, starting all the way at the top of Florida and going all the way down to pretty much into the Keys, we have a thing called A1A. That was just recently changed to Jimmy Buffett Highway. And we were just, my buddies and I, we're looking at them, and I'm like, make a right on Jimmy Buffett Highway. What the hell is this? And it's changed. We changed it from A1A to Jimmy Buffett. Jimmy Buffett didn't even hang out where we are, but yet the whole thing was changed. And so it's like, okay, that's it. Google changed it. Google Maps, if you do it on your Siri and even your Apple phone, it's going to say, make a left on Jimmy Buffett Highway, no longer on A1A. And so what ends up happening is that the Gulf of America is going to be the Gulf of America. And if you don't call it Gulf of America, he's going to crack down on you. Now, getting past that, you just mentioned the next thing, which is bigger than changing the name of a Gulf. I mean, he seems to be really serious about taking over Canada. I don't know how I feel about this, but let's play that video there, Ryan, where he declares that, yeah, I'm serious about doing it. And if I have to, I'm going to throw some economic muscle around.
His answer is so funny.
It's great. It's so Trump. Go ahead, play it.
The leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstance will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't care.
You had suggested
Listen, I don't care what he says.
Sir, real fast, you said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force, because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it. We're spending hundreds of billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. We're losing massive. We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit. We don't need the cars. We don't need their lumber. We have massive fields of lumber. We don't need their lumber. We have to unrestrict them because stupid people put, restrictions on, but I can do that with an executive order. We don't need anything they have. We don't need their dairy products. We have more than they have. We don't need anything. So why are we losing $200 billion a year and more to protect Canada? And I said that to, as I called him, Governor Trudeau. I said, listen, what would happen if we didn't subsidize you, if we didn't, because we give them a lot of money. We help them. As an example, we're buying icebreakers, and Canada wants to join us in the buying of icebreakers. I said, we don't really want to have a partner in the buying of icebreakers. We don't need a partner. But no right. Nope. No right.
Yeah. So, I don't know if I really want Canada. It's just another responsibility. 40 million people, many of them who are on socialized medicine. I mean, I don't know if we want Canada, but I understand what he's definitely saying. He's saying it doesn't make sense. We don't need Canada. I mean, quite honestly, we just don't need them. They don't offer anything to us. And, he's saying, why is it that we're in a deficit, a trade deficit with Canada? It doesn't make any sense. We don't need to go partnering and ice breaking, material, whatever it may be. We don't really need you. So I think that's what he's doing. He's sort of muscling it to the point of saying, hey, Canada, you need us more than we need you. And, if nothing else, maybe we'll just take you over. I mean, I understand his tactics. It's negotiating. And he's trying to make America benefit from every single last one of the relationships we have. And we haven't been benefiting. We have been dishing out money. We have been dishing out resources, both human, financial, and material-wise. You could talk about military. And what do we get back? We get countries voting against us in the UN. We get countries releasing illegals through borders. I mean, they come to America 3. I focused in a good part of the movie on the northern border. We have things up there called the ice bridge, where the lakes up there freeze, and Canadians can come over into the state of New York and Vermont without any checks, anything. No border patrol stations, nothing. And when you cross over those lakes like I did, on the other side are some of the biggest mosques in Canada. So what are we getting from this relationship? Then on top of that, you had Trudeau forever, bringing out his wokeness and telling people, hey, if America won't take you, illegal aliens, we'll take you up in Canada. Well, what does that mean? That means now that I got to have illegal aliens trekking through the United States on their way to Canada. you know what they're going to do. They're going to stop. They're going to stop in our country. So I like the fact that Trump is literally throwing elbows around. You know, he is a bull right now in a china shop, and he's knocking a lot of plates over, and people are going to have to wake up real quick because he knows he's got 4 years to make an impact, a generational impact. He is not going to waste a day, let alone an hour.
I'll give my overall take on it, but I think it's better if we do go into the next video about Greenland, because there is really kind of a mutual connection with the acquire Canada and acquire Greenland scenario.
Okay, so let's set this up. First of all, and then Ryan will start playing it as we're in the conversation. Don Jr.,
Yes,
along with a sort of entourage.
Charlie Kirk was there. I think.
Yeah, one of the younger podcasters who really hits the young kids. Charlie Kirk went along with them, but it was like a little posse that went with Don Jr. And they actually flew to Greenland. They were meeting with residents, just checking it out to see what it is that the people of Greenland kind of felt about America coming in and buying it, taking it over, whatever it may be. And the videos, I actually went and I spent some time last night on Don Jr.'s X account to see what they look like. And people were, by and large, pretty excited about the idea of, Trump coming in as president and taking over Greenland. So maybe what we could do, Ryan, is we'll play the part from Trump at Mar-a-Lago and see what he is that he has to say.
To Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that.
So, I mean, talk about a whirlwind press conference. I think my overall take on it, right, is from what I've been looking into, and he kind of says it a little bit in the video with the military strategic advantage. But let's look at Canada geographically. If this is my hand and my hand is Canada, most of the people live, like I think 90% of the population live almost like 30 miles from the border to the U.S.
Yeah.
The rest of the North is completely desolate because it's inhospitable. You think it's cold today. We're talking about like 40 degrees, 50 degrees lower up there.
Nobody's going to live there.
Exactly. And Greenland too. I mean, you see the video looks beautiful, but it's a tundra up there. It's the Arctic. But the overall idea, and it's definitely doable. I read about it. In the 1960s, the U.S. Army Corps actually built an underground city of tunnels. They even put in a chapel, kitchen, headquarters, all of that in Greenland, and they sustained it for about 10 years. And it was secret for most of it. And then later on, they revealed the only reason they abandoned it is because that ice shelf is constantly changing.
What was the point of making it?
Human innovation and to establish military bases. But this was back in the 60s. Now look where we are today. I think Trump's overall idea is Canada doesn't provide us anything.
Zero.
We provide for them. We're their crutch.
Mm-hmm.
Trudeau, I think, knew this, and that's kind of why he just dipped out. If he had Canada and he had Greenland, whether it's states or as territories, a lot of things are accomplished. Greenland has insane amounts of natural resource, rare earth metals, untapped oil as well. Same with that northern part of Canada. Me and you are not believers in human-made climate change. I don't believe humans have an impact where we're melting the ice caps. However, Earth itself, for years and years and years, goes through its own natural processes. And if you look around that territory up in the north, Trump could essentially establish multiple stations and open shipping lanes that would, one, be less costly than flying cargo as it is now. And instead of just relying on the Panama Canal to get over from on the East Coast all the way to the other side of the world, you're now opening up the Northern Territory. And yes, we have our ports on the West Coast, but the overall idea is if we own Canada and we own Greenland, can you imagine if we just became almost a universal North American country that has shipping lanes in the north, shipping lanes in the south, and then as well as establishing mining operations to get those rare earth minerals as well as those resources. And on top of that, as the third, the military advantage that he's talking about, I think they would totally aggressively start establishing more military bases up there.
Yeah. So the only thing I push back on these things is that you can have those channels for the boats to come in and out without having to buy Canada. You would be able to take that space, lease that space if you wanted to. I mean, there's multiple different
Why
ways to do
lease
this.
it when you can just have it?
Because you have to take on the onus of 40 million people. And so Canada is not exactly the shining city on the hill. And it's not an economic powerhouse. And to your point, it's relying on America very, very heavily for almost everything it does. So now, if we are responsible for all of these people, which ultimately we would be, it becomes a challenge from us financially. The other thing that you have to remember, it's the equivalent of me saying to you, why don't we buy another state of California? California is set up with so many radical liberals that you can almost never, ever even look at winning that state in an election. Now what you're doing is you're putting another 40 million people in the voting block, of which a good majority of them are absolutely liberal. And so now you've got 40 million. Let's just say you're taking on another, we'll just say 25 million voters. We're setting ourselves up for a very difficult time to win future
But when
elections.
you look at the Canadian breakdown, most of those progressives are in the big cities like Toronto and Vancouver.
Okay.
Most of the population, I mean, it's why Trudeau kind of resigned. His unpopularity is actually technically a worse percentage than Joe Biden's. It's like almost bordering on 30%. So yes, they may have the ideological standpoint, but I gotta be honest, I don't think Trump and his administration are really looking at that matter. I think they're looking at it as, look at all this natural resource. Yes, you can lease the land, but if you get Canadian radical government officials who say, "Oh, well, we have this restriction and that," I think Trump looks at it as a businessman. Well, if I buy it, I don't have to worry about that, and then it's mine. And they have all this natural resource, such as in Greenland and Denmark. I mean, Don Jr. interviewed some of the Greenlanders there. They don't do anything with it. If anything, they are taking money from Greenland and kind of sheltering it back to Denmark and leaving Greenland without the opportunity to tap in that resource. So if we have the manpower and the ability to do so, and we own that land, it cuts down a lot of regulation and restriction.
I would be a greater champion for the Greenland argument, A, because it's on a completely other continent, B, because it doesn't take in a whole lot of liability. There are very, very few people there in Greenland.
I think 56,000.
Yeah, I think we have more here in Indian River County, to be quite honest.
Yeah, there's more in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. It's a small country.
Right. So really what you're doing is you're buying a swath of property. I'm all right with that for the right price. Where I'm not okay with the stuff that we're talking about with Canada, if Canada was a conservative stronghold, then I would think otherwise about it, right? That's number one. Number two is that, you have a house, right? You have a house, and your house has a bad roof, a broken window, the garage door's not opening, and the refrigerator keeps leaking. And instead of taking my money and cleaning up my house where I live, I'm going to start talking about, I'm going to go buy some investment properties. And the argument there would be, well, listen, why don't you get your house in order before it is you go buying another house that needs to have fixing and all the different things replaced? And my point there is that one of the things that I'm most excited about Trump coming into office is that we have a lot of broken parts of America. And they're not the kind of broken parts that you can just change with an executive order. They need fundamental changes to return back to what they once were. Detroit is the perfect example. He just said Detroit. He mentioned Detroit in his speech there about how we're buying 20% of our cars from Canada or whatever it may be. We don't need that. He wants it back in Detroit. Well, I've been to Detroit a bunch of times in the last 15 years. And it is the closest thing that you could look to look over and say, is this Lebanon? I mean, the buildings are falling down. They're vacant. The homes are falling down. Now, there has been some advancement in Detroit over the last, I'll say 5 to 10 years, but it's still far away from where it once was. I would like to see Trump focus in heavily on reversing the tide for places like Detroit, places like South Chicago, places like Oakland, California. I'd love to see us get our own affairs in order. And I think it could be done very quickly, by the way. And once we get our affairs in order, or at least show that we're in the process of getting our affairs in order. If you were to make it a baseball game, if it's a 9-inning game, to get Detroit to look back the way it did when it was a shining city on the hill. Well, when we're in the 3rd inning and we can see that we're cruise controlling, now let's start to look at taking over other places and doing what have you. Do I have a problem with the Panama Canal? No, let's grab the Panama Canal if we have to. You want to take Greenland? All right, if there's strategic stuff there for Greenland, I'll take it. The idea to take over an entire country like Canada, where there also is national pride, by the way. So keep in mind that if you were to take over a country like Canada and make it your 51st state, yes, there will be certain Canadians that are going to be very happy about that. But there are going to be a tremendous amount of Canadians that are going to have tremendous resentment because you're taking away their nation. You're taking away their heritage. You're taking away their history, and nobody wants that.
But Trump's also kind of posing the question, do we just continue funding them? Because if he were to strip all that money, that country kind of falters.
I don't think that you have to buy them in order to help them structure a better them. I mean, Trump's a businessman. There are various different ways to cut a deal. I'll give you an example. I mean, this is going way off tangent, which has nothing to do with Canada, but I just had this conversation. I have a buddy who has a medical practice, and he is thinking about selling it. And there's another guy who is thinking about selling his same medical practice. And I said to him, don't sell yours. Go get his. And he said, well, I don't have the money to buy his. And I said, apparently nobody else does either, because nobody's buying it. He wants to retire. You have this guy in the most vulnerable spot because he really has 2 options. A, close my business and just, okay, it was nice for the 25 years I had it, or B, sell it. But if you don't have a buyer to buy that business, he only has one option. He has an asset that's going to basically go to nothing. So what you do is, I told him, go in there and say, I'll buy your business, but I'm not writing you $1. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to send all of your customers to me. And let's say I buy it for $200,000. You're going to send all your customers to me, and I'm going to give you 25% of the revenue that comes from all those customers that come over to me until I pay you your $200,000. That is a no-brainer deal. That's you've probably seen the infomercials 50 million times. How to buy real estate with no money down. Okay, that's what they're talking about. So what I'm saying is we could go in there and cut deals with Canada to where we are in a very good driver's seat, and at the same time as they come away and benefit. Right now, all these trade deals that were basically established, the same thing with Mexico, same thing with China. Okay, we'll keep on buying your stuff, and you're never going to buy ours because you need the economic help. That's not the way it's got to go. And what happens is that these countries are sucking off our teeth. And Trump's saying, you're not going to suck off our teeth anymore. Now, do I really think that Trump deep down inside says, I want to buy Canada? I don't. What I think he's doing, because he's a brilliant negotiator, I think he's using it as a tactic to get what we want. And what we want is a fair trade deal to where we have the upper hand versus the fact that we've got a $200 billion deficit. And I think that's what he's doing. I think he's using it as a negotiation tactic. And I think he's having a lot of fun on top of that, too.
Clearly, I mean, he had fun with the whole Gulf America thing. And just to touch on it quickly, too, I would like it if we could regain our prominent control of the Panama Canal, because the fact that we did invest so much manpower, time, and money to build that and establish what could be arguably one of the most significant trade routes in the entire world, and the fact that we have allowed it to kind of fall out of our grasp. It seems that maybe Trump isn't going to be able to go buy Canada, and maybe to your point, if by buying Canada it comes with a host of issues. But I was talking to Ashley about it last night when we went for a walk. If I had to at least put a bet on what maybe he would be able to accomplish, I can see it where he acquires Greenland in these 4 years. I think everything is lining up to make sense. Greenland wants independence from Denmark. They love by and large, the idea of becoming Americans because they see the economic opportunity. 56,000 compared to millions in Canada. It just seems more doable. And obviously, the natural resource that can be attained from it. We already started building the bases up there back in the 60s. So I wouldn't be shocked if that is something he does territorially accomplish in his 4 years.
And like I said, I don't have a problem with it. I go back to the real estate thing. If I buy a piece of property and I have all those problems with with the house, like I mentioned, the refrigerator, the roof, whatever, and the lot next door to me is empty, I say, listen, right now is probably not the best time to buy another asset, because I have to fix the one I just got. But I don't want to regret later on not having bought that property and somebody else is going to come in and build something next to me that I don't want. So let's go and buy that. That makes a lot more sense than going to buy another house just like my own. That's going to cause me more problems. So I'm on board with you. Like I said, for the Panama Canal, I'm 100% there. I'm 100% behind naming the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America. And I so far, I don't know enough about the whole thing with Denmark. I mean, not with Denmark, but with Greenland. From what you're saying, it sounds like it makes sense, but it's going to be a long, long sell for a lot of people like myself to look at Canada and say that makes sense to buy it, let alone do I want it? And I don't think I want it. Talking about land and property, one of the most prosperous states there is in the nation right now is Florida, and we're happy to be here. Ron DeSantis, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care what you think of him on a personal level, if you think he's boring, if you think he's sleepy, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. When it comes to managing and leading the state of Florida, he is absolutely downright sensational. Now, one of the things that has to happen very soon is that Marco Rubio is going to become the Secretary of State under the Trump administration. I'm still sort of baffled about that one, but I guess that will reveal why sooner or later. It's funny, he picked up Marco Rubio, and we haven't heard anything about that since it's happened, because all the attention has been on Pete Hegseth and all the other different people that he's tried to pick.
Trump also does not actively hang out with him whatsoever.
Yeah,
I never see the two of them.
I don't understand it. I wonder whether or not it was I'm going to show that I'm going to be a man of all races. So maybe his Latino side came in, but
Or
I mean,
maybe he wanted him out of Florida.
I don't know.
Because I mean, I know the original strategy was let's get Lara Trump in there, but that seems to have
fizzled.
That fizzled.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I don't. There's got to be something to it. I know Marco Rubio has spent a good portion of his career going overseas, visiting Israel, visiting places like that.
Foreign policy.
I think he's into foreign policy. So somebody probably said Rubio, and Trump said okay, and that's how it went. But regardless, there's going to be an open Senate seat. And so Ron DeSantis has to put somebody in that Senate seat, at least for the next 2 years until the next election. So DeSantis, what was this, Dennis? A press conference?
No. So he just more so made.
Do we have a video of this?
We have the video of him saying he would like to deport radical foreign students.
Let's play the clip, and then let's talk about what DeSantis is saying here and what we think. Go ahead, Ryan, play the clip.
Mark, there's a lot of opportunities to right this ship. I know you're going to see on January 20th, President Trump issue a series of executive orders that are going to be really strong on the border. I also think that you have an opportunity at these universities. Go back 20 years. How many foreign students were coming in 20 years ago? A lot less. They've had a big explosion, including from countries that hate the United States of America. Nobody has a right to come here. If you come here and you're making common cause with Hamas, then they should just simply revoke the visa and send those students home. They should not be taking U.S. tax dollars and underwriting universities that are dedicated to promoting ideological anti-American indoctrination. So I think January 20th gives us a chance to right the ship. There's a lot of tools at the disposal, but I'll tell you, we've been asleep at the switch as a country, and now it's time to wake up.
I've always appreciated Ron DeSantis since the day that I got here. In fact, it was one of the ways that I was able to lure your mother into coming to Florida, because I said, look at the way this guy governs. Look at the kind of things that he's setting up for people. And she's like, yeah, you're right. And, he never fails me in terms of the way he sits on a position. And the great thing is he never flip-flops. There has not been a single time that I remember him ever flip-flopping here in Florida. There has not been a day that I've been here for 4 years now. We're here 4 years this month. There's never been a day where he's done something. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? Seriously? I mean, my Lord, the guy put in mandatory e-verify, right? He could have gone further in the way he did it because he made it mandatory for anybody with 25 employees or more. And truth be told, the majority of people who are hiring illegal aliens probably have 25 employees or less. So he could have gone further. But in this particular case, when you look at the radical students that we have coming in, and they're in every single country, I mean, every single state from all different countries, DeSantis is right. If you're going to come here and you're going to start marching in the street right after there was a terror attack in New Orleans and there's an ISIS flag found in the truck, and you're going to take to the streets with a pro-Palestine, kill Israel, kill America message. You know, we played that video, Dennis, when we were here on the show, and you pointed out there's not a single American flag. In the same way we don't need Canada, we don't need these people. The reason why these students are coming over on visas is not because America does better because of it. It's because universities wind up collecting, in most cases, the full tuition. And so they're making a fortune over having these kids come in overseas. And I say, get rid of them. You want to come into my country and you want to start pulling anti-America BS, get out. You would not allow, imagine this. Imagine your own home. And you allow strangers into your home, you welcome them, you feed them, you say, here's the remote to the television, would you like to watch whatever you'd like to watch? You treat them with respect, and then they stand up and they take food that you gave them, throw it against the walls, they start smashing the glasses out of the cabinet, they take the American flag that you have on your flagpole, rip it down and put the flag of their home country on there, and they start telling you that you suck. You know what you would do. You'd take that person by the back of the shirt, you would escort them to the front door and say, get the F out of my house. And if you don't get out now, I'm going to call the sheriff and he's going to take you out. There's not a single human being with their full brain in the United States of America who wouldn't do what I just said. And yet, when it comes to our country, it's like we forget all the rules that you would have at your own home.
Yeah, it's why DeSantis is definitely probably one of, or the most reasonable politician, or not even reasonable, just honest. You know, like he has the true common sense. He pointed it out. They're coming over here, and not only are they not assimilating, they are causing us trouble. Why are we accepting it? And one of his other announcements is that when Rubio does depart, he wants to completely ensure that his replacement is not going to be a pro H-1B visa advocate, to the sense where it's going to be undermining, American workers and making Americans lose jobs.
So the H-1B debate, as far as I'm concerned, really falls into the same things with a student visa. We're inviting people over here, and the American citizen is not benefiting. The American student is not benefiting, and the American worker is not benefiting. If anything, it is all being done at the detriment of the American, whether it's the student, the worker, you name it. The idea that Trump, along with Elon Musk, will take in more H-1B visas is a bad idea. And Trump is not perfect. I'm not going to hold him to a standard of perfection. It is impossible. If we set up Trump to be perfect, we are setting him up to fail, and we're setting ourselves up to be disappointed. So the best way to fight back against a bad idea is to put people in place who will keep the checks and balances of somebody who just doesn't have good ideas. Like I said, do I think Canada buying it's a good idea? No, I would push against that right now. Do I think the other two, the Panama Canal and Greenland, great ideas. Let's go get them. Same thing. Mr. President, you want to secure the border? You want to build a wall? I'm all for it. You want to put a mandatory e-verify? I'm all for it. You want to extend H-1B visas? I'm sorry, you're not going to get my vote. And that's why America is such a success, because we have these checks and balances.
Well, I think that's why I love our audience so much, because I think we all know we want to support and see the best for Trump, but we're not diehard loyalists where we think he's infallible and he's some god that never makes mistakes. We know that he is a man like everyone else, that just the American people decided he's the best man right now to try and lead us out of what Joe Biden and just awful national policies have led us to. So, and proof in the pudding is that we ran a poll, I think, last week, asking, our readers, do you support Trump's stance on the H-1B visa? And majority said no, So, I mean, and those are people that by and large likely voted for Trump, but there's going to be these issues where he's going to take a stance. And obviously the H-1B has been very, very prominent in the sense that Elon Musk won't falter on it even a bit. I mean, you criticize it, you're now risking maybe being shadow banned or getting your badge removed on X.
Yep.
So it's hard when I hear DeSantis say that, knowing, and we say it all the time, because I do like Trump, but I know DeSantis would be a killer president because he does stand by his principles. He has not done anything to Florida that has ever made me feel like it's going to be detrimentally lost. So I just think what DeSantis is doing here is definitely establishing that he's a man who stands by his principles.
Yeah, I think that there's look, God makes it so this way everything happens for a reason. I've never understood why it is that God allowed Barack Obama to become the president of the United States. There have been times in conversations where it has sort of lit a light a little bit in my head. I'll give you an example. We're going to have somebody on our new program called Life After 50, which, by the way, if you're watching right now on X or Facebook, Team DML, whatever, Life After 50 is a program that we just launched. It's an episode every Friday, and it is long form. Our first one was an hour, 45 minutes. We have one that's going to come out Friday, which I'm actually filming today. Will probably be 2 hours. And it sort of reflects back on life. After all my guests are 50 and over. And it talks about, what it is they're doing to get the most out of the years that they have left. And at the same time, reflecting back on what it is that life was about for them. And it's really interesting stuff. I mean, super interesting stuff. And make sure you sign up on for that. But, when you look at why God does what he does, one of the guests that I have coming up is he's a black man from Africa. And I'm having him on because he says Americans don't realize what they have in America. They don't realize what they have with it. And it is worth fighting for in such a way that, it's hard for other people around the world to look at America and see how we're letting it go. And when I listen to somebody like him, I think to myself, maybe God put Barack Obama and Joe Biden in place so this way we wake the hell up, so we can see how valuable our country actually is and how far we've let it drop. And it wakes us up and splashes water on our face, so this way we know we've got to turn things around, turn them around fast. And you talk about what just happened yesterday with Facebook, right? Facebook now changing that there's going to be no more fact checkers and that they're going to release the censorship. Well, it's a sort of stay tuned. It's one of the reasons why we went back on Facebook. We're back on there today, at least with some of the shows. And it's a test. Let's see if he really is serious. Let's see. Can I say that I think Mark Zuckerberg is a scum? If I'm allowed to say it, I just said it. Now it's on there. So there are various different things that are changing right now because Trump is in place. So I like the idea, though, although imperfect and maybe not as consistent in his messaging as a Ron DeSantis, I think we may need somebody right now who is a bit of that bull in the China store, knocking over the plates, crushing them, getting America back into the place it needs to be, and then putting people in place who are more solid in terms of blocking and tackling and making sure that everything's in line and there's no flip-flopping or whatever it may be. Ron DeSantis will probably have his chance down the road. J.D. Vance maybe will have his chance down the road. But I think right now Trump is definitely the perfect guy because we do need to break some eggs in order to make this perfect omelet.
I think so. And I think that's why with this aggressive approach he's been at with the territorial stuff, it's actually it's very Trump. I don't think people should be surprised by it. And I actually want to read you this Facebook comment real quick, if that's okay. It's from Liz, and Liz, I hope that's all right. Good morning, DML. From a conservative Canadian fan of your podcast, Walks and Talks, End of DJT, I just wanted to mention that there are a whole lot more conservative-minded people in Canada that you are aware of. Just like in the US, our mainstream media is all far-left socialists, so they make it look like all its citizens are left-wing progressives. Trudeau is being forced to leave soon because he is so unpopular that the Liberal Party is hemorrhaging voters and party ministers. It's all a lie. If you recall what Trudeau did to Canadians during the pandemic, he created a huge backlash for the long-term emergency measures that he chose to force on everyone. Please know that there is a silent majority in Canada that is fed up with woke ideology and Justin Trudeau's antics. Truly, our many illegals need to go as much as in the U.S.
Look, I agree with her wholeheartedly in the sense that my very best friend here in Florida is a Canadian immigrant. He's got a green card. He and his wife are both from Canada, and they're super conservative. I mean, in fact, maybe sometimes even a little bit more conservative than I am.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt that Canada has its share of patriotic Canadians who love America as well, and that are very conservative and look at Justin Trudeau and say, "Hey, Trudeau destroyed our country in the same way Biden and Obama destroyed yours." At the same time, is not everyone is like her, and not everyone's like my best friend. There are a lot of people up there who have a very, very liberal attitude, and until we can actually prove that we would wind up getting let's say, for instance, a 66% ratio of conservatives to 33% liberals on a voting block standpoint, I want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up to fail in future elections. That's one of the reasons why you don't want an amnesty. If you gave amnesty, you would wind up giving 40 million people who are going to rely on the Democrat Party to give them free stuff, the same people who allowed them in here. They're going to vote for that. I don't want to give amnesty because if we give amnesty, we're done. We'll never win another election again. Now, with that being said, for the sake of brevity, and we're running up against the clock, speaking of immigration, there is the Lake and Riley Act. You have details on what that is. And unbelievably, there was well over 100 Democrats who voted against this act. So why don't you tell people, I mean, Lake and Riley was killed by an illegal alien.
She was the nursing student.
Yep.
Who was killed by an illegal immigrant. And as you just mentioned.
Illegal alien, son. Illegal alien.
What did I say?
Illegal immigrant. There's no such thing as an illegal immigrant.
Yeah. What was I saying?
You're telling about who Lake and Riley is.
Yes. So she was killed, and then they voted on the act yesterday. All Republicans voted in favor, of course, but 37 Democrats, including radical Pramila Jayapal, who we have a video of. I can't stand. She's just as bad as AOC and Pelosi.
Maybe worse.
I can't wait for her to be out of office. But it passed yesterday, and what it basically is going to ensure now, it's going to require the detention of illegal aliens charged with certain crimes like burglary or theft, even if they haven't been convicted yet. It also allows states to sue the federal government if immigration policies are harming the state or its residents financially. So, it's definitely a big deal in the sense that it's the first bill being passed of the year with the new Congress.
Yep.
And it's a good show of force. I wasn't surprised that all the Republicans voted for it. But, I'm actually maybe more surprised that there were Democrats that did vote for it. But of course, there were 37 that don't, and we do have the video of Pramila Jayapal if we want to play it.
Yeah, let's make ourselves sick.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So let us be clear. This is the Republican playbook over and over again. Scare people about immigrants. Never propose anything that actually solves an outdated and arcane immigration system that desperately needs Congress to allocate resources and update legal pathways to make the immigration system work for everyone. My Republican colleagues simply want to preserve a broken immigration system as a campaign issue so that they can scapegoat and demonize immigrants, all to distract the American people from their real goals of making working people pay for another Republican tax scam that benefits billionaires and the wealthiest.
A person like that, you've got to ask yourself, were they dropped on their head 50,000 times by their parent? Or are they doing drugs and not telling anybody and we're not picking it up? I mean, first of all, she's got a brain that only a mother can love. Secondly, I mean, her argument doesn't hold water. The Democrat Party has benefited from the broken immigration system that she's talking about. They don't want to fix it because if they fix it, it stops benefiting them. It's that simple of a thing. We know it. Anybody with a brain knows it. Now, when you look at the immigration system and you want to say it's broken, I'll tell you it's broken right away. I'll give you the number one part of it that's broken, and I'm talking about from a legal standpoint. Chain migration makes no sense. You are given access to this country based on who you are related to. which is crazy because we take in, let's just say, I don't know, Joe from the Congo, right? So Joe from the Congo comes in. Joe's going to be able to petition for his wife. His wife comes in. Now both of them are going to be able to petition for their children. And we're going to be able to then petition for any of their other relatives. And the chain never ends. And so we've got these people that are coming in who are vetted to a certain degree, but they offer nothing, no real value to anybody here in the United States. It's just a bloodline sort of thing. We need to change that. So she's right. Let's change the broken immigration system. Nobody wanted 1.2 million people in this country legally. Congress passed that on their own. So let's bring it back to traditional replacement level. Let's get it back to 100,000, 50,000. What people seem to forget is that immigration, when it first started, was actually managed by the Labor Department. And the reason why is because we didn't want to take people in that were going to create an unfair working system for the American citizen who is going to be undercut. So, yeah, do you want to change it? Absolutely. Let's limit the people. Let's kill chain migration. Let's make it completely merit-based. Let's secure the border. Let's deport all the people that are on the books. Because if you take off the parts that are broken, like chain migration, and then you take the rest of the immigration system, it is a great system. The problem that it's with it is that it's not enforced. That's the problem. It's not the lack of a system. It's the lack of enforcement. And if we were to actually enforce the laws that are on the books currently, we would have a much different scenario here in the United States where immigrants were not looked at like she's saying they're looked at. I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't look at an immigrant based on their skin color. I look at an immigrant as being another person I've got to pay for. We've got too many people coming in. I've got record number of people living in tents in the United States of America. You want me to worry about the guy from the Congo or Ukraine or wherever it is around the world? You want me to worry about that person first and give them the dignity and the respect that you're telling me I need to give them before I concern myself with the veteran or the child or the mother or the family that's living in a car or in a tent or in a cardboard box? You want me to not give them the dignity and the respect that they deserve as an American citizen? Their forefathers, their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents, great-grandparents died on battlefields so this way we could have the freedoms of having some dumbass like her get up and be able to speak garbage on a Congress floor and not wind up being in jail.
Because her view of fixing the immigration system is we should just make it as simple as handing out a concert ticket and just say, come on in.
A free concert ticket at that, yeah. She just wants to sit there. She wants to have BOGO deals. Buy one, get one free. Here we go. One immigrant in. Do you have another one you want to take in? Sure, we'll just take you in. And by the way, Dennis Michael Lynch, his sons, and everybody else has got to pay for him.
I was gonna say, that wasn't even the worst clip. At some point, she tries to make the comparison to like a little kid stealing a candy bar from a 7-Eleven. They're not firing on all cylinders.
Speaking of people in tents, I mean, over in Los Angeles right now, the fires are going bananas.
Ryan's got B-roll of that too.
Yeah, play some of these things with some of these fires. I mean, these fires are going pretty heavy. I mean,
so in terms of so it started yesterday morning, and what's very kind of crazy is that Ryan told me a few days before that California was going to be kind of hit with these crazy windstorms. I mean, anywhere from like 60 to 80 miles per hour. And yesterday morning, a fire started. I don't think they actually know the origin yet of how it sparked, or if it was arson or if it was natural. I'm guessing arson. But because of those winds, the fire has traversed throughout the Palisades, Los Angeles. I think so far, like almost 3,000 acres of land has been burned. And as of this morning, there has been almost 0% containment. These fires are bad. It's almost reminiscent of what happened with Maui in that sense, where it's tearing through.
Listen, you got
the footage says it all.
Yeah, the footage is very scary. I mean, the thing too about the fire. I mean, I remember when we were in Hawaii. Remember in Hawaii and we saw a wildfire go? I mean, the stuff jumps so quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a situation where it's like you're running for your life, and to outrun a fire is not an easy thing to do.
And I know California can be notorious for these fires, but I mean, this one in particular, it's just it almost some of this video almost looks like apocalyptic because of the way it's encroaching into these neighborhoods.
Well, the part of the thing about this video that you're looking at right now, I mean, somebody's taking the video back and forth with their cell phone camera. They're inside their house. I mean, they seem to be more hell-bent on making sure they get good footage to post online than they are about saving their lives.
It might be for insurance purposes. Who knows?
Well, insurance purposes, it's pretty hard to collect on insurance if you're burnt to a crisp.
Well,
So, at the end of the day,
I think so far 30,000 residents have been evacuated.
yeah, 30,000 residents. And look, there's going to be a lot of dead people in this whole thing. There's no way you're getting out of this escaped, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, I mean, America right now, we're always facing some kind of disaster of some kind, but strong leadership is what helps people recover. So we'll pray for the folks there and hope that, regardless of their political affiliation, we don't want to see anybody get hurt. We don't want to see anybody lose their lives. We certainly don't want to see property be destroyed. And so we have to only just give out our prayers and hope for the best. With that being said about prayers, this Friday, the second episode of Life After 50, we're going to have a gentleman named Father Barrett. He's coming in here, and we're going to be talking about a lot of interesting things. One of them being about how hard it is right now to get youngsters and just people of all walks of life, really, to regain their faith, to give God the time that He deserves. Because we get so caught up in social media and jobs, and so many people have to work 3 jobs in order to be able to keep, food on the table, a roof over their head. A lot of times what winds up happening is that, people are only praying to God when they need something. So we're going to have a very, very, very deep conversation about that. And one of the promising things right now is that, faith-based podcasts are really rising up the charts and raising to new levels to, where you say, wow, is America finding its way back to God? Which really is something that's important, because I think one of the ways that America has lost its way is that we lost our touch and our faith. And we forgot that, when you walk into a courtroom or when you look at the dollar bill in your pocket, it's, in God we trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a big part. And so we'll have that on Friday. So just real quick, for the people that we are reconnecting with here on Facebook and some of the other social media stuff, if you want to make sure you're never missing an episode of this program or some of the other programs now that we're launching, like Life After 50, the one easiest thing for you to do is to go to DennisMichaelLynch.com. It's all one word. Dennis has 2 N's. DennisMichaelLynch.com. Sign up with your email. You'll get our daily newsletter. If you don't get it, check your spam box. And if you really want to have a connection to us where you never lose us in case Facebook goes back to its old bad ways, we're testing it right now to see if they're going to stick with their promises. But the other way you could do it is that we're starting to do text messaging in the month of February. And so if you give us your cell, there's a form there, your cell and where it is that you're from. Only I have that information. Not even my sons have access to it. We won't spam you. We're not going to sell your stuff. Nothing. So it's a great way to stay in touch with us and to open the doors to what we believe is the most important content you could get. And that's the content we put out in our newsletters, and that's the content we put out in these programs. So we definitely appreciate you being with us, especially those who joined us back on Facebook today. For all those members of Team DML, we've got some surprises coming for you next week, by the way. If you're a member, we've got some surprises coming, and we'll be announcing that later this week. Tomorrow. We'll be announcing that tomorrow on tomorrow's show. So stay tuned to that. So until the next time, God willing, will be tomorrow. May God bless you, your family, these United States, Donald J. Trump, and all the people right now who are trying to survive those wildfires.
Today's Team DML blessing goes out to Carla Dawson.
Carla, enjoy it, run with it, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.